What's up, historians? I'm Smith McNeill, and this is Echoes of Freedom. Together, we'll travel to America's most iconic places, uncover hidden stories, and bring the past to life. From the voices of everyday heroes to the legends we thought we knew, we'll listen to the echoes of freedom that shaped our nation. So get ready to explore, learn, and celebrate American history, one story at a time. What's up, historians? I'm Smith McNeill, and we're back again with some more Echoes of Freedom. And we're standing here in kind of an interesting place. We're standing on the battlefield of Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, a site of a Revolutionary War battle right here that took place in the 1770s. And I just want to show you around. They've done this place up super nice. Let's see if my motion is still on. So you can see they've got trails out this way. It's got a nice paved path all the way through, so you can come out, you can walk the trails, you can have a good time. There's so much to see out here. They've got memorials all over the place as well. We'll just continue to walk on around this way here, but we're standing here in front of this plaque. Get this camera to come on back around. We're standing here in front of this plaque here. In this plaque it says fragmented attack. I just want to read it off to you. I'm going to throw it up as an overlay here, but it says, among the trees, you may find it difficult to stay oriented to the battlefield. And as I was driving over to this area here, I found myself very confused about exactly, well, where's the battlefield? Where's all this stuff taking place? You know, there's some markers here, markers there. I'm very familiar with Gettysburg. Gettysburg is another place that's done up really, really nice. And if you've seen the previous episodes, you'll see our adventure over in Gettysburg. But it's a place that's kind of hard to get oriented. And if you're new to Gettysburg, it's kind of the same thing. It's just things everywhere. Which, again, with Gettysburg, there's a lot of memorials everywhere. So you can kind of pick and figure out what happened each day and kind of track along that way. But here, it's kind of very hard to be oriented. And that is because of the layout. And it says here that soldiers and combatants here face these same problems. Stationed here on the left flank of the American first line, so we're standing at the left flank of the American line. And if you can see on the map, I'll see if I can get a circle to highlight it, but it's over here. The left flank will be kind of down in this area. I may just throw it back up on the screen where you can see where I'm pointing at on the map. So this lower area down here, and then we've got the British on this side in the red coats down at the bottom, closer to where I came in at. But stationed here at the left flank of the American first line, Lieutenant Colonel Henry Lee and his legion of cavalry and infantry had orders to withdraw and support the second line after the first line gave away. Disoriented by the thick woods, and if you saw as I walked around, let's walk around this way again. You can see just how thick these woods are. And that's the thing about Revolutionary War battles. There's this all-new guerrilla warfare. There's lots and lots of wooded areas where these battles primarily took place. As opposed to the Civil War, where it's a lot more open field, the Revolutionary War here is all mostly fought in the woods, which gave the Patriots an advantage because we invented this guerrilla warfare where we climb up in trees and sharpshoot or snipe, or like a sniper, shoot at the British officers. So disoriented by the thick woods and chaos of battle, Lee's forces were veered southeast and missed the left flank of the second line. So if you can kind of see, it's kind of laid out like a T. So we've got a line right up in here, and then we've got another line back in here. So that's kind of laying out the battlefield, and there's two lines here of British soldiers. This confusion had serious consequences for both armies. A large contingent of redcoats, Hessians split off from the main British advance and pursued Lee's legion in a separate running battle. That action fragmented the British attack, and both sides' plans of the battle began to unravel. And I quote here, this is from British Annual Register of 1781. Sorry, it's kind of hard to read this plaque. It says, the country in general presented a wilderness covered with tall woods, which were rendered intricate by shrubs and thick underbrush. but which was interspersed here and there by a few scattered plantations and cleared fields. And there's a couple of those farther up the road here. We may film a couple other locations as we're here and just talk about it. But let's grab some notes and just talk about what we've got going on here, just exactly here at Guilford Courthouse. So in the spring of 1881 is where we're at now, and the Revolutionary War is raging here in the South. British under General Charles Cornwallis are trying to cut through the Carolinas to stomp out the rebellion. And if you saw the battle, or our coverage of Cowpen's battlefield a couple weeks ago, a couple episodes ago, you'll see Cornwallis is working through South Carolina at that point. Now we're here in North Carolina as he's working down. So South Carolina's after this, as Cornwallis is working to weed out the rebels, or the Americans, which will eventually lead him to Yorktown, where he will ultimately surrender to George Washington. Cornwallis has about 1,900 battle-hardened redcoats and Hessian allies, veterans of campaigns across the South. He's confident, aggressive, and determined to crush out any and all American resistance once and for all. We're going to let these people kind of pass by here. Facing him is General Nathaniel Greene, who was recently given command of the Southern Army. Greene knows that he can't win a conventional battle, and his force is about 4,400 men strong. But nearly half of those men are militia, who are inexperienced and very poorly trained. Instead, Greene develops a strategy of attrition. Fight, retreat, and fight again. We see this at the Battle of Cowpens. Take 2 shots and retreat. The next line, take 2 shots and retreat. And it's going to stomp out the British and slow their attack down. And that's what Greene's putting into place right here at Guilford County Courthouse. His goal isn't to win one big clash, but to bleed the British dry bit by bit. He picks Guilford Courthouse, this battlefield, a wooded area with open fields, ridges, and roads, as the perfect place to carry out his plan. And what better place than this tightly wooded area all throughout? So Greene's 3 lines of defense. We're going to kind of pan around to this side here and talk about the 3 lines of defense that Nathaniel Greene is going to have here at Guilford Courthouse. All right, guys, we're back. I apologize for that. We had some people passing by, and then I got some hiccups, so I decided to just pause for a second and get back in order. So as we're talking about Greene's 3 lines of defenses. His first line is the North Carolina militia. They're local men here from the area, so they're very familiar with these woods. And matter of fact, unlike Gettysburg, where it's kind of perfectly laid out fields, you can tell, this is a Revolutionary War style battlefield. It's just woods. And so the North Carolina men know these woods very, very well. Because of that, they are Greene's first line of defense. And they're mostly farmers, and they have no formal military training. They are told to fire 2 volleys and then fall back. Sound familiar? We see this at Cowpen's battlefield. The second line is the Virginia militia. These are better trained men, and they're a little more reliable. So Greene tells them, hold out as long as you can before you fall back. And then the third line is the Continental Regulars, which is the backbone of Greene's forces. And these are hardened troops from Maryland and Delaware, positioned with artillery on a ridge just behind us for a final stand. Now, Greene is gambling at this point. He knows that many will view the militia retreat, as cowardice. But he's counting on those first 2 lines to slow down the British and wear them down and lead them into the teeth of his Continentals, his regulars. So now let's talk about the eruption of the whole battle. And I'm going to pick this up at another location just down the battlefield. I'm going to drive around, pick a new spot, and we're going to talk about the eruption of the battle. So stay tuned. All right, guys, so now we're down just by the creek, just off of the, what they call the second line trail, which would be Greene's second line there, just off of the trailhead. The trail actually is just right through the woods there, but we're down here by the creek, and we're going to continue talking about this battle here. And let's talk about the battle erupting now. So around midday on March 15th, Cornwallis strikes. His troops advance across open ground toward the North Carolina militia, who unleashed their 2 volleys at close range. One British officer later writes, "The first fire was most galling. Officers and men fell on every side, and it staggered the whole line." But as Greene ordered, the militia fell back, leaving the field. Cornwallis, thinking the Americans were breaking, presses on forward, falling into Greene's trap. Next came the Virginia militia, who put up a stiffer resistance, trading musket fire from behind fences and trees, but under pressure they too eventually retreated. Now Cornwallis faces Greene's Continental Line, disciplined soldiers under Colonel John Edgar Howard, where here the battle becomes brutal. Muskets roar, bayonets clash, artillery tears through the trees. Cornwallis himself admitted, "I never saw such fighting since God made me. The Americans fought like demons." So let's talk about now the chaos and the withdrawal from the battlefield. As the fighting grew so desperate throughout the day, Cornwallis ordered his artillery to fire grape shot directly into the melee, hitting not only Americans but also his own men. Now, a grape shot is almost like a shotgun blast. What it is it's a cannonball that goes up in the air and then it explodes, dropping smaller balls out all over the field, taking out large numbers of men. He orders these grape shots to be fired up over his men and over the Americans, and he winds up killing some of his own men, but it's a risk he's willing to take at this point. It was a horrific gamble to break the deadlock, and Cornwallis felt like he had no other choice but to give it a go. Greene, seeing his men pressed on all sides, chose to withdraw from the field. And unlike at Camden or Charleston, the American army wasn't destroyed, it lived to fight another day, and that was the tactics of the Americans. All right, so the Americans, they had everything to lose, whereas the British, they didn't have anything to lose by coming over here and fighting. The Americans had their whole freedom and their whole country to lose. For the Americans, it was more of a fact of, I don't need to win this battle. I don't need to win this today. We need to stay alive to keep fighting, because as long as we can keep fighting, as long as we are willing to fight, we have a shot at independence. And so that was the mindset of many commanders in the Continental Army. As long as we can keep our army intact and have men willing to fight another day, we can win our freedom. Whereas the British, they could get tired out. They can decide, we're done. We got nothing to gain by being here. There's no point in us being here, and they could just leave. The Americans, like I said before, now I know I keep repeating myself, but it's an important point. They had their whole country to lose, and as long as they could live to fight another day, they had another day to work for their independence. And that's what we're going to get at the end of the Revolutionary War. We're going to move to one more filming location to wrap this video up, so stay tuned. All right, we're now standing here. I felt like this was a fitting place. We're standing here in front of the Joseph Winston Memorial. I just want to read what it says here on the plaque. It says, "In memory of the North Carolina troops under Major Joseph Winston, who were fighting the Hessians and Tarleton's cavalry near this spot after the Continental Line retreated from the field of battle in March the 15th of 1781. So victory or defeat. On the surface, Cornwallis had won. He held the battlefield at the day's end, but the cost was staggering. Over 500 British casualties, nearly a quarter of his entire force. Greene had lost less than 300 men. And most importantly, he still had his army intact. They were able to live to fight another day. Greene summed up his campaign simply stating, and I quote, "We fight, get beat, rise, and fight again." And that is the mindset and the mentality of the Continental troops during the Revolution. We fight, we get beat, but we rise and we fight again. Cornwallis couldn't afford another victory like this one. His army was bled so badly that within weeks he retreated north into Virginia, and just 7 months later at Yorktown he surrendered to Washington. So this is on this downward spiral for Major or General Cornwallis, as it's going to lead up ultimately to his surrender, as I mentioned earlier in this video. So the Battle of Guilford Courthouse shows that winning a battle doesn't always mean winning the war. Cornwallis's victory was so costly that it set the stage for his ultimate defeat. American resilience, militia who fired their 2 volleys, Virginians who stood their ground, and Continentals who refused to break proved that the cause of independence was alive and determined. Keep in mind at this point, just a few years prior to this battle, America wrote the Declaration of Independence in 1776. We're in 1781, so we're 5 years down the road. So America's already declared independence, and at this point, we are fighting for it. We know we're going to win it. It's just a matter of when and at what cost. But we knew that as long as we lived to fight another day, it would come. And sure enough, 7 months after the battle, right here on these grounds, here at Guilford Courthouse, that independence is going to come to America. Today, these woods and fields remain quiet, but if you listen closely, you can almost hear the thunder of muskets, the shouts of commands, the clash of bayonets, the echoes of our freedom and American heritage here on these grounds. And I can kind of hear it ringing throughout my ears as I stand kind of in silence as I'm walking back up from the wooded section we were just at in the film. I can hear the echoes of freedom that rings throughout the trees and the grounds here. This battlefield is a reminder that sometimes history turns not on who holds the ground, but who can outlast and outthink the other. So the Battle of Guilford Courthouse is a lesson in persistence and determination. Greene lost the battle, but won the campaign. Cornwallis won the field, but ultimately lost the war. That said, that is the Battle of Guilford Courthouse. There's still so much here left to explore. I've only scratched a very few handful of places. There's miles upon miles upon miles. If you're ever in the Greensboro area, you come on down, check out Guilford Courthouse. It will be worth your stop. We've got more to come on Echoes of Freedom, and we will see you on the next adventure.